Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Wine Down Wednesday. I don't know if anyone has wine, liquor, or water. What do we have in hand? I see wine. Oh, what's the can? Oh, that's water. Keela's water. What else we got popping?
Water.
I got tea.
Tea, water, well, whatever you're drinking. This conversation is really intended to be just as hydrating as that is. So Stephanie and I and Antoinette have talked about how can we ensure that as we are approaching the end of the year and walking into 2021, that we feel energized. And I don't know about you guys, but December it just feels like it snuck up on me. I can't even believe it's December right now. That's number one. But two, I don't know, it's just like an interesting energy. It's like I want to finish the year strong, but I still have to be prepared for next year. And in all of that, I'm really trying to make sure that there's time for me and my family and all those things that really matter. So I feel like it's a super complicated time. It's a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings right now, but just I'm tired. So I've heard that as a little bit of a theme. And I think what Stephanie is about to do is help us have a conversation with each other and give us some tools and questions that we can ask ourselves in order to ensure that we're putting our energy, we're putting our time, we're putting our focus into things that really make a difference and they matter. So I don't want to introduce Stephanie. You guys know her. We're about to ping you in a minute, Stephanie. Let's see if I can pin her. Is she big on screen now, you guys?
Yes, she is.
Okay, perfect. So Stephanie, let's kick off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before you start giving us commands on what to do?
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's so great to see all of your beautiful faces. It's so awesome to be with you, during this time of isolation and everything. It's really great to be able to connect. And I hope that even though, we are virtually together, that we still feel the warmth and enjoy each other's company. So for those of you who don't know, I think everyone seen me in the previous conference, but I'm Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and I like to characterize myself as a writer who moonlights as an attorney. I am an international speaker, award-winning author, coach, attorney, and CEO of C-Suite Women's Network. And I am committed to helping women to create the life they desire and deserve. And that encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses, us as women, us as CEOs, whether we're the CEO of our own business or report to a CEO. I believe that we are always the CEOs of our lives. And so that affords us the opportunity to make great things happen. And so I am just so pleased to be with you this evening and looking forward to a really great conversation.
Well, let's dig deeper. Tell us about your personal life. Are we married, single? Do we have children? Are we dating? I don't know. What's the story here?
It's complicated. Technically or realistically, I have been released from my 21-year marriage, so I'm divorced. I have been divorced since 2016, and I moved to Atlanta 3 years ago after my divorce, and this is the first city that I chose for myself. So I'm at a stage in my life where I literally am starting over. And I'm determined to make the next half the best half. And I'm kind of in that. I guess I'm back dating again. It's just in the pandemic, I'm not really doing anything but just waiting and wishing. But
playing maybe. Right.
Yeah, certainly positioned for love.
Okay, that's beautiful.
I like that position.
I love it. So, you've gone through your list of titles. Let's talk a little bit about author and what inspired you to get into writing and what is it all about?
Well, I have always been a writer. I have been writing since I was a young girl. And, I started out mostly writing poetry. And I wrote poetry mostly through high school and college, and then eventually started to write more prose. And, writing is how I express my soul. And it has been quite therapeutic for me as I am in this new phase of my life. And one of the great things about writing, I mentioned that I've been divorced for 4 years, but during that process, I was able to basically write myself into healing. And so, it is, I believe, my divine connection. I hear and see and create the world I wish to have, the world I wish to live in through my writing, as well as express the world as I see it. So it's an extension of me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so what is this book about?
All right. Well, book. I'm gonna just show you a picture of it here. It's called Disruptive Elevation. When life doesn't go as planned, but goes exactly as it should. And I kind of had this fairy tale life. My marriage was characterized as the Huxtables. He was a physician, or he is a physician. I'm an attorney. We didn't have 5 kids, so just 2. But we had this fairy tale life, and I had my life all planned out, and then, you know, it it all went to pieces. And so, in this period of discovery, I have been blessed to have a new life, and it was because I chose to see it in that way. And this book is actually a follow-up to the book that I wrote after my divorce, Deciding on Joy: How I healed my how I went from breakup to breakthrough in 30 days. And it literally was a story that grew out of my journal after the divorce. And so, of course, there's life after heartbreak, and this kind of picks up um, where that stopped. And so, it is a combination of telling my story in sharing how I have experienced disruption and my journey towards elevation, but also sharing the lessons that I've learned along the way. Because I believe that as women, we connect a lot with each other through our conversations and through our stories and through our testimonies. And as I shared earlier when we were talking just about, getting ready for this evening, a lot of times we keep a lot of things to ourselves because we're ashamed, because we don't want to admit that we fell a little short of our expectations, or we just feel like, we need to keep it to ourselves. But there's a power in release, in sharing your story, and you have the opportunity to empower others. So, I wrote this book to heal myself greatly, but also to share, excuse me, a journey with others. Oh, sorry.
Nope, it goes down the wrong way. Hold on, get it out really quick. You guys, I want to welcome Bridget to the call. I want to welcome Tasha to the call. Yeah, get some of that alcohol. You guys, welcome. We are talking with Stephanie right now. We're doing just an overview so you can have a little bit more perspective and get to know her. And then we're about to really give you a chance to share your stories and begin to release a little bit on this call. Okay, Stephanie, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, this was a book I wrote to heal myself. And, I, throughout this journey, I have had the opportunity to travel. 2017 was like, I was living the fabulous life. I went to India, I went to Rome, and Rome is my second home. And while I was there, I visited a art studio. I collect art like most women collect shoes. I don't really have a shoe problem. I have an art problem.
Oh, this is good.
That's a good problem to have.
The pieces that from this Italian artist, Elena Tomasi Ferroni. And I got a chance to meet her while I was there and while I was healing. And I walked into the studio, and this painting was there. It's called The Byzantine Princess. I have the original in my bedroom, but she spoke to me. And I have a fascination with crowns. My name is Stephanie, and Stephanie means crown one in Greek. And so I have all my life have been fascinated with crowns. I have a collection, and she's crowned. And when I saw her sitting on this throne, it told me that, even though I was going through a difficult time, that I would elevate, I would rise again, and that I'm still on my throne. And it inspired me to really focus on recovering and not just wallowing in the sadness that I experienced at that time. So I wrote this book to share my journey, and it goes through kind of, looking at all the areas of my life and our lives, because I think we all have, similar paths that we go through. And also throughout the book, I incorporate art. As I mentioned, the cover has art, and I'm just going to show you this is like the illustration from chapter 1. But throughout the book, I feature art because, like I say, art is my passion, and it's also a way that I express myself. And every painting or piece that I have, has a meaning. Paintings speak to me, and it's because I have a connection with whatever the artist has shared, and so there's art throughout the book. And it goes through kind of the 7 stages, if you will, that I really committed to exploring over this past 3 years. I start out with the concept of surrender, and it discusses, my spirituality and my relationship with God, and just the whole thought about, how do I reconcile what I'm going through with my faith. And then looking at self. Chapter 2 looks at self and defining myself, and how we all have to define ourselves for ourselves. And chapter 3 gets into disruptive elevation, and we'll talk about that mostly during the conversation tonight. And then purpose, and then choices, joy, and then, of course, the greatest of these is love. So, in the book, I explore, just all the different experiences I've had over this period of time, but also the lesson that I learned and I want us all to learn. And that's, when we experience disruption, how we get through it and how we come out of it on the other side at an even greater height. So
I love it. I just wrote the 7 in the chat, you guys, so you have it. And this is about to get real interactive right now. But what I will tell you, I found really did I even spell surrender right? But when I was just typing it really quickly, I was like, love, I capitalized every single letter, because that to me is like the ultimate of where we want to get to. And whether that's about loving yourself, loving what you do, loving the people who are in your life, like there's this whole big LOVE word that really brings about a level of joy and happiness. So I love that. Okay, so I'm turning it over to you. I want us to get into the disruptive elevation, what that means. And why don't you challenge us? And then I will take it off you guys of pinning Stephanie. We will all be able to see each other, but you need to get ready to turn your mics off, because we're going to all get into this in a second. So Stephanie, give us, where should we go? How do we think about this thing when we want to elevate our lives and begin to
Yes, and get to the other side. The term disruptive elevation actually came to me in 2014. Ironically, I was in Atlanta. I had come to Atlanta for a conference, and I was driving back to Mississippi, which is where I lived at the time. And, still married, still having my little fairy tale going on. It's the people and but I thought about this whole concept of it, of really thinking about when Paul got knocked off his horse. And I thought about, him being on the road to Damascus and being knocked off his horse, and just how, he kind of went through this whole transformation. And not that I was comparing myself to Paul in any way, but just thinking about just that whole process and how life sometimes knocks us off our horse. And I texted a friend while I was thinking about this, and I wrote to her, I've been kicked off, I've fallen off my horse, but I'm going to rise again. I'm on the road on my road to Damascus. I'm going to rise again. Now, little did I know at that time, the little kick I had was nothing compared to the kicks I would have over the next 3 years, because at that time I just got knocked off my horse. Eventually that horse backed up, kicked me in the chest, and rolled over me. But my point being that, we have to learn that, just because we have experienced disruption, it doesn't mean we have to stay there. And I know that all of us have experienced the disruption, of the pandemic this year. It is an overarching overarching disruption that has touched us all in some way, and, has changed the way we live, literally. And, it is a great example of disruption, but we also face some other disruptions. We go through divorces. We may deal with the death of a loved one. We may have a demotion in our job. We may, just experience breakups in friendships and in other relationships. We have all these disruptions. And a lot of times it's not so much as a disruption, but it's the fact that things didn't go as planned. And one of the beautiful things that I have learned throughout this process is that, my life has not gone as I planned it. I did not plan to be divorced after 21 years. I did not plan to have to start all over at that time, I guess at 44. And this is not how my life is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be fabulous. All these great things are supposed to be happening. And, that got turned upside down. And in the course of experiencing this disruption, I have learned that, this is not how I planned my life, but my life is going exactly as it should. Meaning that, we, and in the first chapter, I talk about surrender, and surrender, talks about my connection with faith, but it also is a reminder that we have to surrender this chain to this strict plan of how things are supposed to be, and allow ourselves to be open to the possibilities of life. And I believe when we do that, it allows us to be elevated. And one of the things I say in the book, I wanted, at the time when I wrote the book, I wanted a Mustang. I actually have it now. I finally got myself this Mustang. But the dream car I have for myself is a Mustang. But if I'm open to the possibilities, I believe that God has a Maserati plan for me. And I use that to exemplify how sometimes, we get so committed to this plan that we box ourselves in, and it cuts us off from this greater thing, this greater life, this greater experience that we could have if we would just allow life to happen as it should, and to not get so caught up in the plans that we make that we lose sight of the vision of where we can go. So, as we are experiencing this global disruption, and as we are experiencing it in our own ways, the thing that I hope that each of you takes away from our discussion tonight is that this is really an opportunity for elevation. It's an opportunity to be greater, to go further, to do more, but we have to make a decision that we are in the position to be elevated. So that's the whole concept of disruptive elevation. And it's really embracing our disruptions and not allowing our disruptions to overtake us, but instead to take these disruptions as an opportunity to elevate beyond anything that we could have ever imagined.
I mean, there's some good comments in here. Keela basically says, number one, we have to kill the outside noise. I couldn't agree with that anymore. Like, that's so important. But the more thought-provoking question that she asked, and she's not really asking, but was this year really a disruption? Could it have been a purposeful plan to make us slow down, to make us take notice of what matters and what's important, Yeah, I think it's a really provocative question, honestly. But with that, when we know that there's this moment, whether it's God's plan or whether it was like, I know there's three questions that we can all talk about as a very powerful, influential group of creative and business oriented women. let's get into some of these questions around how we can make sure we are well poised for disruptive elevation. And I wanted to welcome Hermes to the call. I know there's a couple of people who joined. You guys, I'm gonna unpin the video really quick and get us all looking at each other. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Long time no see.
I know.
Hi.
And you guys, we're going to use this chat effectively. We're going to use our voices. So any thoughts that come up and in your mind, like just write it in the chat and let's make this as dynamic as you want to. If you hear something you like, there is a reaction button at the bottom. Like, let's do the claps. Let's do the thumbs up. Let's keep ourselves like talking and communicating with each other as we go through these exercises. So Stephanie, what's the first question we should be asking ourselves?
Yes. Well, as a prelude to question,
okay,
is this concept of making a decision. And I just want to say this, and largely following up to Marquila's point about killing off the noise. I love the word decide. I'm a nerd, love to read, love to learn, and love to learn.
That's my dog. That's Luna. Let me go to mute, you guys. Keep going.
Decide has as its root the word side, the Latin word side, and probably cide in Latin, but it means to kill or to cut off. And it is a very powerful moment in our lives when we cut off all other options but the option that gets us to what we desire and deserve. And so in making those decisions and getting to the point of being able to cut off, to make those decisions, to decide, we have to stop and ask ourselves, these three questions. And the first question that I think is so important to ask when we're in the midst of a storm, whether it's literal or figurative, when we're in the midst of disruption, is what can I control? What can I control? And I do hope that as we go through these questions, that you actually think about that and ask yourself this question in this time of where you are. If you're facing disruption in your business and you don't know where to go, your business has been disrupted, what can you control? Because a lot of times I think we get so overwhelmed by all these things that need to happen that we lose sight of what is in our control. And that's where we have power. We don't have control over other people, over other things, but there are certain things that are within our control. And when we begin there, it gives us the power to make those decisions. So what is it that you can control?
Anyone would like to share? Anita just jumped in. She can control how she responds to what's happening. I love that. Anything else you guys feel like is totally in your control as you are even like dealing with this whole Corona disruptive thing, or life or business? Keela, what's going through your head?
Well, I feel like you can only control yourself.
I want to ask Stephanie a question, because you, in your comment earlier, you made a statement about getting to your joy.
Mm-hmm.
You commented on that briefly. And I think that's the name of one of your books as well.
Yes, because one of the things that I have found in this whole process, that it is so important to decide on joy. Because, particularly, when I was going through the divorce, prayerfully none of you have gone through a divorce, but if you have,
I loved it.
Yeah. 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 There's a release, and you've got to get to the point where you recognize that you're not losing a relationship, but you're being released to get to the relationship that you desire and deserve. But until you get to that point, you have to make a decision. And, there was a point where I decided on joy, and I cut off all other options other than me getting over the pain and hurt of that situation and getting to my joy. And it's a commitment that I've made to myself, and it's a commitment that I've continued. And the first thing I had to ask myself was, what can I control? I couldn't control him. I couldn't control all these other situations, but I could control me, and I could control my thoughts and my behaviors and my actions. And so these are not things that I'm just asking people just because I want to know or just some random questions. These are questions I have actually asked myself and things that I actively use. So getting to joy was making that decision, one, that I deserved it, and two, that I was going to cut off all other options, but those options that lead to my joy.
I love it. Tanya gave you a clap on that one. We have a couple of comments here. Teresa says controlling her emotions and her spending. This is good. You can't control that financial piece. Yeah. Ashley says she can control how she reacts to things. I love this. Hermine said her tribe, she can control who she brings into her life, and also letting go. I mean, even like when you asked the question, Stephanie, I actually felt a little stomped. And then like, as we're seeing all these answers and I started digging a little bit deeper, the reality is we control way more than what we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
And like in my mind, I was like, I can control the bar that I set for myself. I can control the quality of the work that I deliver. I can control like the energy that I put around me and how I go about getting things done. But Antoinette says who she decides to let into her life. Representative Kim, what can you control? Policy, I know, but go ahead, give us something.
Great, glad you froze on that one. For me, I come from a different point of, rather than controlling everything, for me, I have to understand what are my triggers.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand why I think the way that I do. What is that triggering in me? Then I can understand how I respond, how I can react. It's a self-governance within me, rather than imagine, because you can control all these things and then all of a sudden be on the opposite end of the spectrum when you just explode. But if you don't understand what is the root cause of why I want certain people in my life, what is the root cause in me that my thoughts are wandering, what's going on within me? That's just how I process everything. Okay, rather than look at my external circumstances, I want to understand me. And I filter everything to pointing it directly at me first.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because that is something that's so important. That's this understanding of self, which is why I devoted an entire chapter. Chapter 2 focuses on self, because so many times we don't allow ourselves to experience full joy because we don't even know who we are. We don't know the things, like you say, that trigger us. We don't know what we want. Wonder why we can't get it and why we can't find joy. And it's something that we have to truly look inside and understand who we are. Because one of the things I always say is you cannot fix what you will not face. And you can't fix the things that you are that are broken in you and broken in your life if you don't face who you are. And you have to learn to love her, because that shows up in your business, it shows up in your personal relationship, it shows up in everything. And so this introflexion of onto who you are and understanding her and understanding that you are the only person you control, your thoughts, your triggers, who you are and what you do. And you have to begin with that question.
I love it. Anyone else who has not jumped in via the text? Misha, you got something for us? What are you controlling over there?
Listen, right now. So I'm in the middle of a divorce after 20 years. So this is like therapeutic for me. I'm really fresh out the pen. So for me to hear these things, it's like, oh, you still can control your life. Because after 20 years, you kind of develop, it's a whole nother person. It's a one. It really is a one. So I'm just right now kind of listening. I'm really listening. I really needed this. So yeah.
So yeah, I love that. You can control what you listen to, what you take in, how you process it. I love that. Hey, Tasha, you got something for us? Something you controlling over there? You're on mute. You're on mute. She didn't know how to take it off mute. Okay. Let's see, Hermes. Oh, you want to jump in? Sometimes I feel like that is part of the problem.
Yeah. And you know, and
Oh.
control in this sense too, I think it's real important. That's a really great point, you know, because control in this sense is not so much as manipulating and force as much as it is understanding what's under your power, what you what you have the ability to influence. And rather than trying to make everybody do something, really understanding, you know, what's within, you know, what's within your power, what's under your influence, and what should you be focusing on. So it is important to distinguish that it's not making folks do stuff, because you can't make folks do what you want to do. You cannot.
No.
You know, you can influence them, but they have to make a decision for themselves to follow you, you know. So it's really important to understand that this is all about understanding your agency. That's a great way that I'd like to describe it. Understanding your agency, what you have the ability to influence through your actions.
That's beautiful. That's to Aaron's point directly. So I'm glad you addressed that. That's beautiful.
Can I say something right quick?
Yeah, jump on in.
The reason I brought that up is because I know for myself, just this idea of being able to control things, and just in a lot of my reading, especially in Buddhism, this, and you know, doing a lot of meditation, I'm learning that sometimes it's when we resist letting the experience go through us, emotion and all, that it becomes harder.
Mhm.
And a lot of times when we seek to control something, we're almost saying we are not accepting the experience,
Right.
and that being part of our journey.
Mhm.
And so it can be really tricky, because sometimes the resistance is what makes that journey even longer. You know, it's almost like, you know, and I think about it, you know, I'll use men as an example, where their mother passes away and they won't cry. Like, they know they want to cry just like a baby. The reason I use men is because I have one that doesn't cry at all. But, and you know, it's there, you see it.
Mhm.
But it's not until years later something happens, a trigger, and then all of a sudden it gushes out. But sometimes what happens is when that person explodes, then it's even harder than if they would have just let that emotion go through, or
Right.
that experience run through.
That's a great point.
In the first chapter, I talk about surrender. This surrender is such a powerful thing, because I think a lot of times we think that we need to be in control, which is different than, you know, just understanding what's under our influence. And like you say, you know, when you surrender to the possibilities of life, you do remove resistance, and you do allow yourself to experience new things and experience life in a way that you hadn't before.
So good. Okay. I think that was good, Stephanie. Should we go to the second question? I'm gonna let Carmen in real quick.
Sure. So, you know, once you kind of, you know, begin to experience and understand what you have agency over, you know, because, you know, as Aaron mentioned, it's important, just as important to know what you can control, so that you understand what you can't control, i.e. something that's in somebody else, that's someone else's responsibility. So once you kind of work through those things, the next question that you need to ask yourself is, what can I do now? Because it's you know, I think interesting that, you know, we're having this discussion about these questions now. I literally had this conversation with my son earlier today about, because he called me worrying about something that has not materialized, and I had to get him to stop and ask. We literally went through these questions. What can you control? What do you have the ability to do? And what is somebody else's responsibility? But then asking him, well, what can you do right now to change what it is you desire? Because a lot of times we get overwhelmed and think we're stuck. because we're focusing on something that we believe needs to happen in the future that we don't have the resources for, or is under somebody else's control, somebody else's responsibility, when we don't look at what we have the ability to do right now. So that's something, when you are, experiencing this disruption, or you're trying to move your life, you're trying to get over, hurt, and heal, what can you do right now? You may not be able to do, if you've got 100 things that need to be done, you may not be able to do 1 through 100, but you can do 1, you can do 1, 2, and 3, or whatever. But when you begin to eat that elephant, we always hear about eating that elephant one bite at a time. But when you look at what can you do right now to change, because sometimes there's just one thing, and it may be just changing your mindset. But that's an important question to ask yourself. What can you do now?
Anita just jumped in and said she has learned to change her routine. That she's learned that she can't expect something different if she operates the exact same way on a day-to-day basis. I think that's powerful.
You hear, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And sometimes the thing that you need to change in your life is you and the way you're going about it. And so that's something that's really powerful to understand, is when you can embrace something and change it now.
Anyone else? Something that you can change or do now? I see Representative Kim jumping in.
Well, I don't. So in my situation, I am. So it's accepting my limitations. So I mean, I heard you say, Stephanie, when you have a 0 to 100 things to do, I'm going to do 100 things. That's who I am. That's the way I'm wired. I don't care how many hours. I know we all have 24 hours in a day. So to tell me I cannot do 100 is to challenge me. But at some point I had to learn, and I'm still learning, how to accept my limitations and to deal with them. I often ask the question to myself and to others is that, okay, if you're always used to being A+, will A- do for you? In my world, no, it's not going to do for me, because I'm always going to strive to do A+. And at the end of the day, I measure my day as up, thumbs down, or somewhere in the middle. And I have to be okay with somewhere in the middle. There's some days I do well. I see some people shaking their heads, and there's some days that I'm just like, dang, I missed the mark on that one. And I have to be okay with that. So I think accepting my limitations, knowing where I am, knowing what I can or cannot do better. And then at the end of the day, knowing I'm gonna get up tomorrow and finish the things that I didn't do.
I mean, what I think when you shared that, it made me quickly think we have to be okay with being honest with ourselves. There are moments when we do fall short. And I tell you, we lie to ourselves sometimes. We make excuses. Oh, but I was this and I was that. No, I just messed up. You know what I mean? And so I think a level of honesty has to be a part of the relationship that we have with ourselves, to be able to admit when the shortcoming, when it happens,
Right.
Hey, Ashley jumped in. She said, change the way she thinks. Sometimes she finds herself overthinking. Kim just added on to that: authenticity, transparency. Hermes, what were you saying no to, friend?
That you have to say no?
Oh, that you have to say no. Okay, good. Bridget says setting boundaries is also important. Betty, welcome to the call. It's good to see your face. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to say something.
Oh, hello.
When I used to work for Comcast back in the day, and whenever we got into an accident, one of the main questions they used to ask us was, what could you have done in that accident that would have made the outcome different? Mm-hmm. And you better not have said nothing. So you always had to think, what could I have done that would have not made that accident happen? So you're constantly reevaluating yourself and what you did throughout that whole time, that you could have done something differently. So that kind of set me on a path to always reevaluate myself as a person, constantly. So like I said, that was in my 20s. So my 30s, when I that happen. And so throughout my life, I've always kind of set myself to reevaluate myself constantly with that same mindset. What could I have done differently? Every time something happens, what could I have done differently to, change the outcome? So
I think that's so, I over rotate on this one. I'm so about doing stuff differently that I don't even give myself the opportunity to celebrate what I have done well. You know what I mean? So
Oh.
a little bit of what I can like do now is to, and I'm trying to get better with this, but just like celebrate the small wins and pat myself on the back a little bit more, Like, I'm like, oh, it's been 2 years and this was my plan and I'm off plan and I'm upset about it. People are like, girlfriend, your business is still alive during COVID. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? So, I think a little bit of it is like, I so am in that mind frame of what could I do better? How could I do it differently? Like, how do I take it to the next level? But there is a moment of like, we just have to celebrate some of the wins too. So I'm trying to push myself to do that a little bit better.
Right. Right. Because, I think a lot of times that we don't celebrate the fact that we are here now, the fact that, we are able to dream still. We're able to put these plans in place. We're able to reevaluate. And that's the point of this question is, really looking at what you have the power to do right now. Because even though you may not be able to do everything you desire at this exact moment, there is something you can do. And so it's all about kind of capturing the power of now, and being able to appreciate the present and appreciate where you are right now so that you are able to expand and go further. And you don't miss out on the beauty of where you are right now, because the fact that we're all here, this is something to celebrate, that we have joy in our hearts that we can talk about and we can experience, and that gives us the promise of even more.
What's one last question you would give us to kind of think about and talk about today, Stephanie?
All right, so this is about making decisions that help us to prioritize, because you touched on it about the importance of being honest with ourselves. And sometimes the real honest question that we need to ask is not what do we want to do, but what do we need to do? And, many times when we are asking this of ourselves, it may involve a sacrifice. It always involves a change and getting out of our comfort zone and really getting to the core of what it is we need. Because many times what is between us and our joy is our own decisions. And so we have to focus on what do you need to do right now?
Ooh, who wants to jump in? I need some answers. Type it, speak it. Go ahead, Tanya.
I think Oprah said it best when she said she always asks God, what's the next best move?
Mm-hmm.
You can always have a to-do list or I need to-do list, but what is the next best move that's going to help position you to maximize that moment? And I think that it's funny because like it's the second on December the 5th, my business will be 20 years old.
Wow.
Yes, thank you. And sometimes you'd be like, oh, I could have done this and how could I have done that differently? But I don't even think like that anymore. It's almost like every stumble, I now make it part of the dance.
That's right.
It's part of the story. It's not one entrepreneur, one successful person that has not learned how to capitalize on their mistakes and monetize their current position.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of what I have had to learn to do. And I thank God for Marion and Anthony. I think they're like my confidants.
Mm-hmm.
And they always like, well, what you gonna do? But what you go? It's like they always, and it's a lot of things from because a lot of things come at us. And even from a legal standpoint, just because you can do something, you got to think about, should I do that?
I need to do that. Yeah.
Or even is it worth doing that?
Right.
Because sometimes it's just not even worth it. Because if you got to put out more energy and more time to do this thing or to get this back, you could have all that energy toward moving forward.
So Stephanie, when we think about this question, is it a tactical question? Is it more of a emotional, like we have tap into my own strength, or what Tanya's saying, like, do you get really specific around a very defined, smart, objective action that you can move forward? Like, how would you guide us on this question?
Because I think it depends. I mean, it depends on what you need, So this can be a tactical question, and it can also be a question of really understanding what do you need to focus on in terms of getting your energy even in the right space to be able to do the things you desire, So this can be a two-pronged approach where it's really about prioritizing.
Okay.
Prioritizing your resources, prioritizing your energy, prioritizing your mindset, and really asking yourself, what's important, and getting you to make the main thing the main thing. We hear that a lot, and because we will expend our energy into things that do not serve us, meaning they don't propel our businesses. They don't propel us as women. They don't serve us. They serve someone else to our detriment. So this is can be a two-pronged question where you're really prioritizing where you are expending your energy. And then that allows you to be more clear in understanding the tactical things that you need to do. But it's all about priority and putting the first things first.
Let's get one more person to share, maybe one additional answer around something that you are putting on your list of what you need to do. Okay, go ahead, Anita, jump in.
Well, actually, because tonight I started to not show up because I was like, I don't know, I just get like that sometimes. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this because I do like meditations now. I'm doing affirmations. I'm trying to follow the mindset of, I guess, sometimes the wealthy as far as doing the early starts, getting my day started early. And it's just, since I'm starting to do those, I'm seeing things change. So like you were saying, like she was saying, Stephanie, as far as with the mindset, I'm seeing just different things opening up for myself because I've changed that. And so by me saying, no, I'm going to do this anyway, and by still joining on the meeting, I'm really enjoying this. So, So yeah, I appreciate it.
We need to hear positive things happening, because, that is one of the major commitments that I've made to myself in this half. And that is being in control of, or being mindful. That's really the word I want to use. Being mindful and deliberate about what I allow to influence my mind, including my own words. And so, there is a benefit to hearing positive things and positive energy and hearing about people doing positive things. And it's not just some Pollyanna pie in the sky, hocus pocus, when we talk about energy. There's a great energy on this call. It's invigorating, it's inspiring. I know I'm getting excited just, with the conversation that we're having. And these are things that we need because it gives us the fuel that allows us to have the right frame of mind when we begin making important decisions around our lives and our businesses.
I love it. I think it was inspiring for Tanya. She said she's going to do exactly what you said by prioritizing resources, energy, mental capacity, Teresa, I love this, like just being committed to taking more workshops like this one to stay motivated. We are so isolated in so many ways that having the opportunity to be in circles with other women, with other people who share interest in terms of profession and like skill set, it really is sort of inspiring. So in the interest of time, I know you would challenge us to take these questions away. You guys, I put the questions in bold so you could write the 3 questions down that Stephanie just took us through. Is there any piece of advice you would leave us with as driven entrepreneurs closing out the year, getting ready for next year? Like, what would be, on top of answering these questions, on top of getting your book, which we'll talk about, like, what would you like leave us with?
Well, the thing that that comes to mind, I always like to use analogies and use imagery to express, kind of, where we need to move. And I always think about, when you are, we always talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're at the end of this year, and 2020 has been a year we can't wait to get out of, and we're at the, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And should we get to the end of the tunnel and know that, and see that what's coming at us is really a train and not a light, we have to make the decision to jump. We have to make the decision to not allow the disruptions in our life to just run us over, but we have to take action. And as you are preparing for the next year, and because we don't know, 2020 has shown us that, you truly just don't know what to expect anymore. No one would have ever imagined that we would be in a pandemic in 2020. But whatever comes at us, whether it is the light at the end of the tunnel or whether it is a train, we still have the ability to jump. And by jump, I mean to take the action that we need to move ourselves forward. We don't have to stand in one place and be run over. We have the ability to create the life we desire and deserve. We have the ability to create the businesses that we desire and deserve, but it takes our action. It takes our commitment. It takes our decisions.
That was powerful, Stephanie. That was great. Okay, how you guys feeling? Give me a thumbs up, a reaction with the something, or just get off mute and scream real quick. How are you guys feeling? Thumbs up. Tasha gave us thumbs up. Keela clap. Yes, we got away. You guys, the commitment that you have to WeUp and joining these calls are amazing. Stephanie, you did an amazing job. One, being honest and open and authentic about your personal story, owning it and sharing it, because as you heard, as someone who's been through divorce, as Misha's talking about what she's going through, these words are powerful and very helpful and inspiring. And I think I have the questions written down, so I've definitely written them, but I think these are questions over the holiday break that if you get a moment to yourself, like spend some time digging even deeper into it. And it probably would even help if you had the book that Stephanie has referenced multiple times, not only because it has beautiful art, but words that can help guide our steps and help us gain clarity where we need to. So, you're getting such great feedback, Stephanie, in the chat. It's kind of like, Representative Kim is like, thank you for the invitation. She feels invigorated. So that's pretty strong. Aaron said, great conversation, very inspirational. Antoinetta said, thank you, Stephanie and Yolanda, but I'm just an afterthought, honey. It's all about you. Tanya said, this was beautiful. Thanks, ladies. Keela is like, it's never long enough because we need to have boy talk. That's why it's really not long enough. Consuela said, I'm loving this. Yeah, so I think like your impact and even just like the 40 minutes you've been sharing has been amazing. So Antoinette, you want to close us out, my friend? We have 2 minutes.
I'm going to say thank you, everyone. I miss you all because we've been in this pandemic. I want to thank you all for your support. Again, thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie's now part of our WeUp family, so really thank you. And the month of December, we're going to be supporting women in business. So it's all about how can you guys support each other. We are echoing that. It's been a very difficult month for us all, so we should really show our support. Buy a book, share a resource, be a mentor, whatever you can do so we can all learn how to support each other. We all say that wonderful things happen when women come together. And I'm so blessed to have such a great community of women that surround us. So thank you. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. We look forward to 2021 because there's going to be some amazing things.
Oh, wait, we see a book. Whose book is that? Hermes, what did you just put up? Is that your book? Oh, that's Antoinette's book. I see.
What book?
That's yours. So you guys, I love this whole, who's on Instagram? Is everyone on Instagram? Like, let's actively go follow each other, like, recommend. I know many of you are already following Deo Women. I try to follow everyone back as much as I can through either my personal site or through Deo, but let's make sure. Keela, I'm about to repost your picture, by the way, in that panties and bra. But anyway, let's make sure.
Let's do a new one.
I can't. No, it's so good.
Let's do a new one.
Okay, fine. So, you know, let's make sure we're following, we're posting, we're sharing, we're talking about, even if it's in the stories, it costs us nothing. And the impact is so motivating and inspiring. And of course, you guys, Stephanie has her beautiful book. And if you really have some time over the holiday, this is really an inspiring and great read that you can dive into. Antoinette, aren't you giving one book away some kind of way? We're going to give one book away on Instagram. So
you're going to give one of the books away. Yeah.
Yeah, there will be a way for you to win this book. So
and I love that pin. Stephanie, thank you for wearing that We Are pin. It looks beautiful. Thank you.
Hey. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Have a great holiday. Oh, here we go. The IGs are coming through, you guys. If you can just stay on, we won't close it out, at least for you to go follow like everyone on IG so we can stay connected. We have super dope hair. We have Mrs. Anita to you. That's cute. So like, let's go through and start following each other, stay connected and give each other like support through social media, because that helps significantly. So yeah, if you have to jump off, go ahead and jump off. We're going to keep this line open. I'm going to take it off of like the video if you need to, but like, okay, we have one little typo. Okay, that's fine, Aaron. Yes, we got the right one now. And this is the start to keep it going.
Yolanda, is anyone on here on Clubhouse?
I'm not on Clubhouse. I heard it's amazing.